To Your Eternity is an anime aired in spring 2021, and it is something to be desired with. It starts off confusing, but as it progresses, the story becomes interesting. Even though most of the time you think the story is complicated, even I was a bit confused about the whole plot, but then again, it will sink in after time. I also did not expect to experience a lot of emotion throughout the series, as I got into it expecting a typical shonen anime. So, fret not, as I'll try to recap and better explain the plot of this low-key shonen anime. Imagine being thrown to Earth as an orb, but you can't transform into anything you can encounter. Yup, that's how the story starts, since the Beholder sent you on some kind of mission on Earth. The orb first appears as a rock, then after a considerable amount of time turns into moss, and finally, when a dying wolf falls on it, it changes. The orb, now taking on the shape of a wolf, encounters a nameless boy who lives by himself in a tiny, isolated home in a lonely, freezing area. The nameless boy thinks the wolf is Joanne, his lost pet. The boy tends to the wolf and expresses his desire to leave the tundra in search of other people, thinking that a better life is waiting for them, somewhere beyond the icy land. The nameless boy, bringing the wolf with him, decides to leave to find others. They traverse the hostile terrain while dealing with several difficulties. The nameless boy sustained a lot of injuries along the way, one deep cut on his leg among other ailments, and he became weaker and weaker. Despite his hope, he chooses to head back home after realizing the journey is too risky. The boy's condition worsens back at the cabin. He thinks about his loneliness and the futility of his dreams. He eventually dies in the hut by himself from the cold and his wounds. The orb remains by his side, still shaped like a wolf. The orb takes over the boy's form after his death. This is the first time the orb has changed into a human, giving it the ability to walk, talk, and feel and sense human emotions. The orb sets out on its adventure, now capable of learning and growing through its interactions with the world and the people it will meet. The orb is now wandering south in the form of the boy it encountered before. Since he does not know how to act like a human, the boy dies several times from starvation, injury, and being devoured by a bear, but keeps regenerating every time. Meanwhile, a nearby village named Ninyana, they are preparing to sacrifice a little girl named March to please the god Oniguma. March is a young kid who is carefree and wishes to be a mother when she grows up. While transporting March up the mountain to the altar, her companion Perona arranges a distraction, allowing her to flee. March flees, but she runs into the boy who was eaten by a bear, but as he regenerates, he scares the pursuers of March. March ends up giving the boy several fruits, which he devours like a wolf. As the two rest, March has a nightmare about her friend and infant sister being sacrificed to Oniguma in her place, and she chooses to return to the main road. However, the boy follows her, and March playfully refers to herself as his mother. At the start, March wanted to give the nameless boy a name, and at first, she agreed to name him as Fushi. But on the other side, a large bear attacks and mauls the soldiers monitoring her. Perona used this as an opportunity to escape and reached out to a secret blade to cut her ties free, and flees, but she tumbles over a cliff while fleeing the monster. Meanwhile, Hayase and the rest of the party accompanying March up the mountain came across March as she attempts to teach the young boy to eat like a human. Hayase then continues to escort March towards the shrine. Thankfully, Perona landed on a small puddle of water and quickly searched for March. But she stumbled across Fushi. Perona asked Fushi where March is, but doesn't respond and kept walking. Hayase fed March a drugged jelly and carried her to the altar. After tying March to the altar, the enormous bear appears again. Assuming the bear is Oniguma, Hayase and her escorts are about to depart when Perona rushes in to save March, followed shortly by the orb in the shape of the boy. Hayase decides to stay and witness the sight as the bear knocks Perona out. But the boy transforms into a wolf and bites off the bear's face, causing it to bleed to death. Hayase swears that March, Perona, and the unknown wolf would be saved if they follow her to Yanome. The girls accept the offer, and the wolf finally says the words March attempted to teach the boy earlier, "Thank you." At first, Perona had flashbacks of her sister being sacrificed, and when she tried to save her, it was too late. In the present, Hayase guides March, Perona, and the transforming wolf boy, who is named Fushi in the long run, on a long journey to Yanome. Once they arrived, Hayase follows them to eat at various food vendors, but then slips them individual sleeping pills. When Fushi woke up, he was in a prison cell and was quickly attacked by desperate people who discovered that the youngster is immortal. And Fushi learned a new phrase, "It hurts." Fushi transforms into a wolf to escape, but is struck with a poisoned arrow. March administers Fushi's wounds, and using the arrow stuck inside Fushi, Perona devises a scheme to steal a trophy from the bear's pelt, flee to Ninyana, and use it to demonstrate that they no longer need to sacrifice people to Oniguma. After Fushi and March are spotted, Hayase orders March to take care of the bear. Despite her attempts, the bear succumbs to its injuries, while Fushi opens itself up to new stimulation. Meanwhile, Perona is forced to devise an improvised escape plot after falling into a storage shed and being discovered by a guard, in which she defeated the guard, took the disguise, and helped March and Fushi escape with her. Perona tries to cut a chunk of Oniguma to demonstrate that sacrifices are no longer necessary. But March refuses to hurt the bear since she believes it is no longer needed. Perona understands and escapes with March, Fushi, and the Elder, but is pursued by Yanome's villagers. When Perona is attacked by the attackers, March sacrifices her life and took an arrow that was about to hit Perona. This causes Fushi to shift into a bear and defeat the foes. After remembering and savoring those sweet memories together, March dies in front of Perona, and she lost all hope, then tries to kill herself. But the soul of March lives on and tries to stop her, which led Fushi to stopping Perona from killing herself for March. Afterwards, they escape, as Fushi transforms into Oniguma to run away. Then Perona informs March's parents about her death, with Yanome soldiers threatening to seize Fushi. Perona persuades him to split up and go for the sake of both. Hayase saw Fushi and is preparing to shoot him with an arrow as he leaves. However, Perona shot her first at her hand. Fushi is shown taking on March's appearance. After experiencing the death of his two dearest companions, Fushi continues his journey through the forest, where he meets the old Pyorin again. Who teaches him how to talk after noticing his interest in writing. After a while, Fushi can gradually communicate with the Elder. even telling her his story. They subsequently travel in Takunaha, which is now at war with Yanome, with the goal of reaching Pioran's lover's home. While resting, they are ambushed by a strange entity that steals Fushi's memories and hence his forms. Fushi's creator, the Beholder, appears and orders him to destroy the creature's core in the middle. After several attempts of exposing its core, Fushi decides to transform into March to climb trees and be able to reach for its core. After beating it, the Beholder informs Fushi that their duty is to save the world, and there are beings who wish to obstruct this goal. Eventually they arrive at Pioran's lover's residence. This episode starts off with introducing a character named Gugu. Gugu is a child who works in stores to survive but is abandoned by his older brother. Shortly after, Gugu nearly dies after saving a girl who was about to get squashed by a rolling log. However, he is rescued by Pioran's lover, Boozman, and compelled to wear a mask to conceal his injured face. Pioran and Fushi arrive at the eatery, where the latter interacts with Gugu multiple times. However, the young kid is conflicted when his crush, Rian Krop, develops feelings for Fushi and attempts to impress her. The episode ends with Gugu working out to develop his physique and win over Rian some other time. Rian Krop agreed to work for Boozman. Gugu then spoke with Fushi about immortality and insisted on demonstrating him some tricks. It is then demonstrated that if Fushi is injured by an object, he can recreate and produce that object. After a disagreement with the Boozman, Gugu departs the restaurant and seeks for other opportunities in the city. However, he is frequently the target of discrimination after showing his malformed face, to the point of fully giving up his mask. Meanwhile, Fushi attempts to cook and clean the restaurant, but after several failures, Pioran tells him that he needs Gugu's assistance to learn new skills and eventually become an adult. Gugu struggles to obtain easy money with Rian's ring she gave him, but ultimately gives it up to his missing brother. The following night, a group of men try to kidnap Gugu to use him as part of a show, but Fushi scares the men by transforming into the bear. As Fushi requests Gugu's help, the two become friends. As Fushi feeds a starving Gugu, he learns about the notion of death and wonders how he can adapt the form of the dead. Gugu is relieved when Fushi pledges to take on Gugu's shape and remember him if he dies, as Fushi did with March and the nameless boy. Rian discovers the two, and after initially disagreeing with Gugu about not displaying his face, the two became friends, after sharing parallels about their horrible familial ties, which are not actually horrendous but are certainly unhealthy for them. As Fushi decides to look for Gugu's mask, which he abandoned to hide his malformed face, the other two decide to return to the restaurant. On their way home, Rian is pursued by people hired by her father, but she escapes. After retrieving Gugu's mask, Fushi is attacked once more by a shadow. Fushi returns to them, and another woman decides to return Rian to her parents. They chose to run into the forest, and Fushi created a distraction by transforming into an injured March. The episode concluded with Fushi confronting another unknown foe. Fushi struggles in defeating the Nokker, and Gugu finds a way to save Fushi. He then learns that he can breathe fire through the mask if he vomits out enough booze from his belly. He then decides to return to the restaurant to ask for more booze, but was met with Rian's family. They had a short argument about not letting Rian go back to her parents, and eventually, Gugu decided to run back and return to Fushi. Although Fushi is defeated by the Nokkers, Gugu is able to save him because the flames went through Booze's mask and burnt down the Nokker. Then, Gugu was worried that he was too late to save Fushi, but saw a strange aura and followed it, leading to a rock, which then Fushi regained his powers once again. Gugu then returns to the restaurant and teaches Fushi how to cook. Gugu eventually makes peace with his guardian. The beholders reappear to Fushi, urging him to leave the location, but Fushi refused since he needs Gugu. 4 years later, Fushi is relieved that he is maturing, as his human form has developed facial hair. With her 16th birthday approaching, Rian is uneasy about being forced to marry another man, especially since a drunken Gugu declared his love for her 4 years prior. Gugu does not recall such an event because of the large amount of alcohol in his stomach. He is later visited by his long-lost older brother, who wishes to apologize for abandoning him, but he is turned down. Nonetheless, he returns Rian's ring, which Gugu cherished much to Rian's surprise. As the birthday party approaches, Fushi and Gugu visits Rian's mansion. Fushi proposes that Gugu declare his long-held romantic affections for Rian, but he feels inferior to her because of his low status. When Rian was called to see her impending spouse, she was dissatisfied. Gugu noticed this and took a walk around the garden. However, as Rian approaches Gugu, they both recall the origins of the ring and how Gugu was injured. The Nokkers then attack the two teenagers, and the Beholder informs Fushi of this. It was shown that Fushi helped many people flee the collapsing structure. Fushi and Gugu now join forces to combat the Nokker and discover its vulnerability. It has been revealed that there is flesh buried behind those tough stones, and they created a strategy to create a hole and inflict damage. They were able to inflict damage on the Nokker, but it ultimately got the better of Fushi. Fushi, now injured, reverts to his late villager's youthful form. Later, Rian saved Gugu, and while they were attempting to escape, some debris began to collapse. And Gugu used his strength to defend Rian, allowing him to express his genuine feelings toward her while carrying debris behind his back. This causes Fushi to realize Gugu dies as he takes his appearance and utilizes all his strength to fight the opponent who flees to the west. As she heals, Rian attempts to locate Gugu, but Fushi assumes his form and lies that Gugu will not return. As Fushi leaves on a journey alone to avert further casualties. As Rian muses on her mutual love for Gugu, she informs her father that the man she is in love with has died. Fushi calls the Beholder and seeks about his major reason for being brought into the world, but the Beholder refuses to reveal everything and just offers a veiled explanation, that he is only there to defeat Nokkers. After a brief argument, Fushi was able to sniff out Pioran and chooses to accompany him on his adventure, despite his disapprovals. During their voyage, Pioran encourages Fushi to transform into March in order to climb trees, only to realize that he had forgotten about young March during the previous battle. He is now determined to become stronger in order to protect those he cares about. The two are soon caught on an island full of prisoners, and Fushi sets out on a mission to save his good buddy and traveling companion Pioran. Fushi enters a criminal competition to release Pyorin. In the opening round, Fushi is unable to enter the arena after being tackled by a man. Fushi enters the arena when there is only one surviving warrior, as most of them are killed. Fushi's regeneration abilities when attacked by an enemy resulted in him winning when his opponent was frightened by it. After the first round, Fushi gained popularity, and many people wanted to be near him. However, Tonari's group was there to avoid people getting close to Fushi. At night, Fushi speaks with the Beholder, explaining that he does not want to kill people, but the Beholder explains that it's part of his growth. In the second round, Fushi keeps reluctant about killing and transforming into Perona to win. However, Fushi is shocked at this, having realized that Perona must be dead if he became her. As Fushi wonders what caused Perona's death, Tonari, a 13-year-old girl, asserts that nice people can become criminals, citing her own experiences with her father. Fushi continued climbing the walls to save Pyorin, prompting him to scream out to her at night. Pyorin refuses to be saved and advises Fushi to move on in life and leave it be. In the following round, Fushi demonstrates his fighting prowess, but his opponent refuses to concede. This prompts the arena to assault the two fighters, unhappy by the lack of casualties. After the battle, in which Fushi is once again successful, the villagers become violent with Fushi, as he didn't want to kill those people. Suddenly, the Nokkers emerge and was able to take the memory of Guga and Oniguma from Fushi. As a result, all the villagers and Fushi form a temporary alliance and work to beat off the Nokkers. As the Nokkers are beaten, Fushi is relieved to have recovered his memories of March, Oniguma, and Guga, and befriends Tonari for attempting to assist him, despite their earlier disagreements. Fushi continues to bond with the children, while Tonari conceals her ambitions through flashbacks of her dark past and the shock of her father's murder in the arena years ago. In March's shape, Fushi sneaks into Pyorin's captivity and promises to save her. In the final match, Fushi confronts Hayase, who admits to killing Perona. This enrages Fushi, but she defeats him by injecting a narcotic into his neck, rendering him unconscious and making her the new leader of Janata Island, free to do whatever she wants with Fushi. Hayase, victorious and fully captivated, tells the audience that she was the one who discovered Fushi 4 years ago in a wild state, and that it was from her that he learned human speech, autonomy, and awareness. She then entrusts Tonari with the future of Janata Island, while she takes Fushi to a hidden bedroom to do unspeakable things. Tonari, Miya, Upa, and the rest attempt to save their immortal comrade, but are apprehended by the guards who are now following Hayase. Hayase tells her and her pals to leave or perish at her hands. She is astonished and pleased when Fushi, who threatens to kill her with a knife, tells her that the child she was attacking was nothing more than an empty shell, having transferred his conscious sense of self into the shape of the mole he had previously achieved. He offers to let Hayase do whatever she wants with him in exchange for Tonari and the others' freedom. Hayase agrees to his requirements, allowing Tonari and her companions and the Jananda children to flee through the ship while drugging them unconscious. Tonari awakens and sets off by rowboat to rescue Fushi, who has also been drugged and is being held captive in a well, allowing Hayase to continue where she left off. Tonari attempts to rescue Fushi from Hayase's grasp on her own, but it appears that Fushi no longer requires assistance because he has already escaped that deep cell by becoming a mole. Because of the storm, they spent the night in a nearby cave before fleeing, where they had a meaningful chat regarding Tonari's father and her wishes. She wishes for a happy future with all of her pals, including Fushi. As soon as they were about to escape, the Beholder informed Fushi that Nokkers are invading the city. Mindless creatures approach Janada Island. She and Fushi are forced to confront the monsters who have taken over the dead. Most of Tonari's friends try to help him, but Upa becomes possessed and stabs Mia in the process. They had to move and heal Mia, but it seemed that everything is too late. Fushi was about to kill the possessed Upa when he was unexpectedly defeated, losing some of his power. Now the Nokkers have Uroi, and in his final act, he sacrifices his life to let Tonari and Sandel go and save Fushi by throwing him into Ligard. Fushi was set to take down Hayase, but he had to choose between saving his buddies in danger and keeping Hayase down. Tonari and Fushi are having difficulty recognizing their departed pals now that the Nokkers have taken control of the deceased. As Fushi cowers in sadness and dread, an obsessed Hayase drives him to decide to free Tonari from the warrior woman's murderous anger in order to quote-unquote negotiate with Fushi, who pledges to listen to her, but only if Tonari is released. Tonari, who is an extraordinary resistance to some toxins and poisons, prepares to die and takes Hayase along. However, Fushi saves both her and Hayase from the flaming pit of Nokker-infected corpses and drugs. He then takes on the responsibility of killing their deceased companions, and they say their final farewell. Fushi then transports Hayase unchained in a boat and bids farewell to Tonari, who now rules the area. As Hayase awakens, she declares her ardent love for Fushi, which irritates him. Fushi abandons the boat while boarding another to return to civilization. Although Fushi is initially hesitant, fearing that his presence will only cause her agony and eventually death, he decides to rejoin Pioran despite the Beholder's warning that she is dying of old age, which Fushi does not understand. Over the course of several months, Pioran experiences erratic mood swings ranging from dementia to Fushi's confusion, despite continuing to take care of her. Elsewhere, a compassionate man approaches his home hut on a beach, only to be ambushed by the exact person he had spared, Hayase, who extends its extremely powerful right arm and likely kills him, indicating that she has combined with the Nokker that she had let escape her and had previously hurt her. One day, the dying Pioran speaks to the Beholder and requests that she be resurrected as something that will aid Fushi on his eternal voyage. As she enters paradise, the Beholder captures her vital essence with a white ball that resembles Fushi's actual appearance. Fushi discovers Pioran's body and mourns the loss of his lifelong friend and companion, as well as the happiness he shared with her. Decades later, with nothing for the Beholder to report, a middle-aged Fushi smiles maniacally after defeating and killing another chasing Nokker. And thus ends the recap of Season 1. I know it's confusing at first, but there are a lot of emotions felt once the series kept going. We all learned the value of life and connection, the bonds that Fushi made along the way, even though death is always approaching. It is also something that should not be feared. Fushi has come a long way and grew throughout those challenges. Of course, Season 2 is already aired, and it's another season filled with emotions. Hope you enjoyed the video, and see you guys next time.